Hare Krishna. I don't think he's going to be staying. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Left, push. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhattajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhattajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parujikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the door was locked, is that the problem? Oh, maybe that's why nobody streamed in. We had 10 people out there wanting to get in.
Well, let me try it. Should I try it?
Yeah, try it. Open the door. Ay. Well, we lost all our customers. That was pretty dumb. Ay. Yeah, it's tricky sometimes. There you go. Great. Well, you never know who was out there trying to get in. Hare Krishna. All right, now can you close the whatever door needs to be closed? I can hear him in the kitchen. And this doesn't. Oh boy. Yeah, I guess we have to make sure the door is unlocked at this time. That would be a good idea. All right. Hare Krishna. So, the marker wasn't at the right place, so I'm not sure where we are.
I think we're on
19. Oh, that's a very famous verse. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of May, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 19. Bahunam Janmanam Ante Bahunam Janmanam Ante Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha Samahatma Sudurlabha Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Go ahead. Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Anyone online?
Bahunam Janmanam Ante
Bahunam Janmanamante
Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate
Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate
Vasudeva Sarvam Iti
Vasudeva Sarvamiti
Samahatma Sudurlabha
Samahatma Sudurlabha. Word by words. Bahunam, many, Janmanam, repeated births and deaths, Ante, after, Gyanavan, one who is in full knowledge, Mam, unto me, Prapadyate, surrenders, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, Krishna. Sarvam, everything, iti, thus, saha, that, maha, atma, great soul, sudurlabha, very rare to see. Translation. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental, pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning toward impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that He is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from Him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva, or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. Yeah. Yes, it's okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. We are on page 328. Would you like a book? You can take a book. You never know, you may want to follow along. How about you, Babu? It's okay? All right. All right. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15 of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sa Bhumim Vishvato Vritva Tatishtad Dashangulam Purusha Evedam Sarvam Yat Bhutam Yat Shabhavyam Uttam Tatvasye Yeshano Yadanen Atirohati. Translation: Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, and thousands of feet. Entirely encompassing the whole universe, He still extends beyond it by 10 fingers of breadth. He is in fact this entire universe. He is all that was and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality and of all that is nourished by food. Close quote. In the Chandogya Upanishad 5.1.15, it is said, Navai vacho nachangshungsi noshrotrani namanang sit ya chakshate prana iti eva chakshate prano ye vaitani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life air which is the center of all activities, close quote. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. And because Vasudeva is all-pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. See Bhagavad-gītā 7:17 and 11:40. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes. With the torchlight of knowledge, I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is a very significant verse in the Bhagavad-gītā, and perhaps the most famous or second most famous verse in this chapter. We review and we'll find that Krishna has been speaking about those who, first in text 14, he gives the importance of surrendering unto him. Daivayesha gunamayi mamamaya dorottaya mameviye papadyante mayame tadnarantite. This divine energy of mine, he's speaking about the energy that he outlined in the beginning of the chapter. The earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, which comprise the material elements that are the building blocks of everything we see, including our own selves. This is his lower energy. But above this energy, there is the para prakriti, which consists of us. That's the living entities, the jiva souls, you see, who are sustaining the body, and the whole universe is really here because we're in it. It's a field that we can enact our illusory attempt to be supreme and to be the enjoyers. So that's the energy he described. Daivayesha gunamami. This energy is made of these three modes of nature, you see? Goodness, passion, ignorance. Mamamaya doratyaya, impossible to cross over on our own. Impossible to get out of. We don't even know we're entrapped. We think that we're independent. But those who surrender to me can easily cross beyond it by his mercy. So then the question is, who surrenders and who doesn't? So the next verse describes those who don't surrender. Namam dushkritano mudha papadjadena adama maya puritagana asuram bhavamashra. There's four categories. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So this is a fourfold category of those dushkritis. Prabhupada explains that dushkriti, someone who's kritina, has some qualification. Like the example of those who built the atom bomb, famously Oppenheimer. There was a movie, which I didn't see, but I knew from way back during the World War II, he was the brains behind it. He organized a tremendous effort of the United States to build the atom bomb before Hitler got it. That was the whole idea. So we got it and famously bombed 2 cities in Japan, unnecessarily actually. So this is, kriti means they're qualified in all this brilliance of, the knowledge of physics and all these things, but it's dushkriti. It's used for evil purposes. You see? If you really are wise, why not create something that people can have eternal life? There'll be no more birth, old age, disease, and death. And that they can't do. For that they have to come to the Hare Krishnas. They read the Bhagavad-gītā. So there's these dushkritis, and they fall into 4 categories. Mudhas, who are the fools and rascals. They don't know what's what. They're simply controlled by their senses and the lower modes of nature. Then there's Naradama, who can also be mudhas. These are the lowest among mankind, who simply spend their precious human life in very crude activities, trying to maintain themselves and eke out some material pleasure. Maya puritagana, those who may occupy a post, say, in the universities, but their real knowledge is stolen by illusion. Maya aparitagana. They have so many wrong ideas about what life is and what the goal of life is and what really important is. And finally, you get the out-and-out demons who are declared enemies of God. Different from the agnostics. Agnostics mean, I don't know. And sometimes the militant agnostics say no one can know if there is a God or not. But still, they're not as radical as the atheists, who are declared enemies of God and make it their life's mission to try to disabuse anyone of belief in God. So these 4 categories, they don't surrender to Krishna. Lowest among mankind. Then, on the positive side, there are 4 categories of those who do approach God. Chaturvadapajantamam jana sukritino. You see the opposite, dushkritino, as is sukritino. So sukriti means they're pious. Those who are in trouble. This is a very common reason why people go to church and they go to temple. They go to, because they have some suffering in their life. Maybe some disease of themselves or their loved ones, or a million different things. And that's one main category. Another category, jigyasur, those who are simply curious. They're not really seriously inquiring, but they're curious about what's going on in that Hare Krishna temple or something. But they do come and they approach, and so they're exposed. Then you have the artarti, another common category. So this is twofold, actually. Prabhupada defines it as those in need of money, and sometimes he says they're poverty-stricken. But they can also be categorized in the artarti, because poverty is a real suffering, artarti. But someone like Dhruva Maharaj, he's also this artarti. You know the story of Dhruva, the little boy? He was only 5 years old, and his father or his stepmother insulted him. And he just wanted to get on his father's lap with his stepbrother. You know, his father had two wives. One he favored very much. The names, you can tell so much from the names. One is named Suruchi, and one is named Suniti. Suniti means very, very virtuous. Suruchi means very beautiful. So the king had favored Suruchi now, you know, and the other one was being ignored so much he had a place in the palace, in a remote corner of the palace. Anyway, so Dhruva was the son of Suniti, and his brother, I forget his name, was the son of Suruchi. So the Suruchi actually, of course, wanted her son to be the heir. You know, didn't want Dhruva, he was actually the elder son. He said, no, you can't get on the lap. You know, you have to take birth from my womb first, you know, forget it. So he felt greatly insulted. And Kshatriyas, he's Kshatriya line, so he was very determined. So he went to his mother. His mother told him, well, I can't help you, you know, but God can help you. Somebody's phone going on. And where is that, upstairs? Anyway, it'll stop eventually, hopefully. So he asked her, where can I find God? So she said, in the forest. I've heard that the sages and the saints, they go to the forest to find God. She's a simple lady, you know. So off he went, 5-year-old boy, to try to find God in the forest. And who comes along but Narada Muni? Narada Muni always comes at just the right time. And he's famous for speaking just what's needed for the person he's speaking to turn toward Krishna, you see. So in this case, he tested Dhruva. He said, because Dhruva asked him, oh great sage, can you help me find God? I'm looking for God. And so Narada said, you're too young, you know. This is the process, but go home, and later on when you're more mature, I can tell you, you know. So Dhruva said, I can't wait. You know, if you can't help me, please excuse me. And he was trudging toward the forest. So Narada said, wait, I'll give you a process. So he taught him a simple process of meditation. But it was based on great austerity. But he taught him, of course, the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he'd be chanting the name of God, Vasudev, that's the main thing. But he also taught him to meditate on Vishnu in the heart, and to reduce your material needs like that, you know. So Dhruva was determined. He went out there and he started doing it, and he became so austere. He was hardly eating, and after some time he was just breathing every other day, and the demigods were feeling it because he was so powerful. He was entraining the universal breathing, and so they asked Vishnu to please do something. So Vishnu comes down and he appears before Dhruva. He opens his eyes, and there's the object of his meditation. You know, he goes into ecstasy and like that. So he famously, he had one verse that it's not in the Bhagavatam. He says, Sthana bilashi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan devu munindra guyam kacham vichindvan abhidivya ratnam swamin kutartos mibarang deyache. He says, I was situated in extreme austerity, sthana bilashi tapasi stitoham, looking for a position, sthana, of my father's kingdom. I wanted my father's kingdom. But now I've gotten you. Sthana tapasi stito tvam praptavan devu munindra guyam, who are hidden away from even the greatest, the devas and the munis. They're very, very difficult to attain, the darshan of God, you know. So now I realize that what I was searching for, big kingdom of the whole world, was like little broken pieces of glass compared to the divine jewel of your darshan. And then the key line, the last line, Swamin kritasto svinamang liyache. My dear Lord, I don't want anything else. Now I don't have any desire for the kingdom anymore. I just want to serve you, you know. So actually then he went home, and eventually he did get the kingdom. And he ruled for thousands of years. And then when the time came for him to leave, yes, it was the Vaikuntha airplane comes down. And it said that he stepped on the head of death in order to get into the airplane. In other words, he was completely fearless, and he was ready to go back to God. He went to back. Then he said, what about my mother, though? He said, don't worry, look behind. And it was another airplane. Another airplane means a swan plane, you know. with his mother in it. She's also going back. So he is categorized by the Acharya, Baladev Vidyabhushan, who was the main commentator that Srila Prabhupada relied on for his commentary here. He quoted a lot of things from him, and of course has his own realizations as well. So he gives Dhruva as an example of artarti, not exactly someone who's poverty-stricken, but someone whose goal is wealth. Arta-arti. Arta-arti. And that was his goal, but it was transformed by his practicing bhakti according to Narada Muni. He gave him a process where there was severe austerity and all these things, but there was also the chanting of the holy name. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Vasudevaya, Vasudevaya. Vasudeva is Krishna. So he was chanting the holy name and meditating, and he became purified of that material desire. So that's very interesting. And then there's the jnani, those who really have some knowledge and they want to increase it. They want of God, a genuine knowledge. And so that's the one who's described in the verse that we just read tonight. Bahunam Jamanamati Jnanavan, one who is truly knowledgeable, understands, they surrender unto me. It may take many births to come to that point. They surrender unto me. They understand that Vasudeva is everything. How is Vasudeva everything? Well, he's there in the spiritual world, but he's expanding in all of these energies. So where is there in this temple or outside of this temple where Vasudeva isn't there? His energies are everywhere. Material energies and the spiritual energy, the spiritual spark. They're both Krishna in the sense there is energy. Just like the sunshine. So the sun, sometimes we have colloquially or idiomatically, you open the blinds in the morning and the sunshine streams in. Now the sun is in the room. Now we have some sun in the room. You don't have the sun, you have the sunshine. So when you see something, you connect the energy to the source of the energy. In a sense, you're seeing the source there also present through the energy. That's how we understand. So in that sense, Krishna is everywhere. Plus, he's also expanded in the heart of everyone as the super soul. That's another way, and in every atom. So where is there a place where there isn't Krishna? His energy or his expansion in the super soul. So that's why the wise, those who are full of knowledge and who have surrendered to, they understand that Vasudeva is everything, Krishna is everything, and they see him everywhere. Samahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. See, so this is a very significant verse. And in the purport here, so Prabhupada, is executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many births may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of God is the ultimate goal of spiritualization. Now, where does that leave us? If we feel like we've just started, we got thousands of births before we actually understand this? Not necessarily. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and his representatives, we can come to that realization even in this lifetime. The power of the chanting of the holy name is so great that the knowledge can become evident even to someone who is very unknowledgeable before. I told you about Narada Muni. So another instance where he met a candidate and he turned him into a devotee. There was this hunter. Now a hunter is in the lower levels of society. He's a hunter, and so Narada is wandering through the forest and he sees various animals, rabbits and other, animals that a hunter would kill. But instead of, they're all writhing in agony. They've been half killed. They've been shot by an arrow in such a way that they're not fully dead yet. And so they're just suffering like anything. He keeps seeing this, and Narada Muni is, what is going on, So he finally finds the hunter who is doing this, and he stops him. He says, "You're responsible for that?" "Yes, I've been trained in that way by my father. But why kill them half? Why at least kill them completely so end their suffering?" No, I was trained in this way. So Narada says, that's a great sin to cause so much unnecessary suffering, And I think, if I recall, that he shows him a vision of, the suffering that he's going to go through as karma by that. So the hunter is chastened by that, And Narada Muni said, so what can I do about that, to stop the suffering? Well, you have to stop this hunting business in this way, and you can take up Krishna consciousness, devotional service, but you have to give up the hunting process. So, but that's all I know in order to support myself. Said, don't worry, you give up the hunting, and I'll make sure you have your necessities of life. You see, so the hunter, Narada was so great, he trusted him, and so I think he broke the bow, he threw it away, like that. And then Narada gave him the simple, but now you go with your wife, give everything you have for the to the Brahmins, and I'll provide everything you need. So the hunter did that, and he became famous as a great devotee. And so people were coming from all over, and to visit this hunter who'd become a bhakta, and they would of course bring rice, and they would bring ghee, and so he had more than enough. So when he saw Narada, so later on, Narada comes to visit his disciple with Parvat Muni, his friend. This is another great sage. Not as great as Narada, but great. So Narada says, I want you to see one of my disciples. So they were approaching his simple abode, where he's living with his wife and chanting Hare Krishna. And the hunter sees him, and he's very overjoyed to see his spiritual master. So he comes out, and he's waving his chadar, and he's bowing down. But Parvat Muni sees that he's not just bowing down in orphan basins, he's jumping here and there on the path, and it's like a regular. So he finally reaches Narada and Parvat, and Parvat Muni asks him, I have one question. What was that jumping everywhere? He says, there's so many ants on the path, I didn't want to hurt them. So the hunter, who was once half killing animals and tormenting them, didn't even want to hurt an ant anymore. So this is a real transformation, because he understood God is there, the living entity. So that's the power of the preaching. So the idea of going through many births. Well, we've already been through many births, but Prabhupada said that I can give you your good fortune, even if this is your first birth. Since you fell from the spiritual world of devotional service, you can go back to Godhead even in this lifetime, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who gave such an easy process. It's chanting Hare Krishna, and there's no hard and fast rules. Anyone, anytime, any place can chant Hare Krishna, and progress tremendously toward going back to Godhead. So we should take that chance, and we don't have to go through many births. Krishna is explaining how rare it is, in ultimate terms, how rare it is for someone to really fully surrender in knowledge to me. That's the whole idea, that this is the one who's the Jnanavan, who's the Jnani, who's very dear. So then he changes course again, and now he's going to describe those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. And they surrender, but not to me, they surrender to demigods. So we shouldn't worship demigods, only worship Krishna. Thank you for coming and spending a little time with us, Haribol. Now what about prasad? Did they get any prasad? Did you get some prasadam? Huh? Yeah, just make sure. You can take something with you if you want. Is that okay? Oh, really? Okay. Thank you. No, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have class at night. Yeah, but Thursday we have a nice class next door, a special program. You're invited to come. It's open, free. Haribol, Hare Krishna. I thought they were Indians. I thought they knew what Bhagavad-gītā is. All right, it's just you and me now. Okay. So I'll chant. You can listen. Text 20. By contrast, Kamaistaistai Vrita Jnana Papadyante Anya Devataha Tang Tang Niyamamastaya Prakritya Niyataksvaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So, see, Rita Jnana means this is all about the Jnanis. The Jnanis are the best of the four, and if they pursue Krishna consciousness nicely, then they become very rare and surrender unto me fully. Bahunam Janmanamati. But here are those whose knowledge has been stolen by illusion, by different kinds of material desires. Purport. Those who are freed from all material contamination surrender unto the Supreme Lord and engage in His devotional service. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by the external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him. And that was the translation. As stated in Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama savakamo va mokshakama hudanadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods. So now he's describing the actual Bhagavad-gītā verse we're studying. This was the Sanskrit for the explanation he gave at the end of the first paragraph. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided. Because in the Vedic literature, there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes. For example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5.142, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna ar sabha britya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is master, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives, whatever the Lord gives him. So, this is also, a lot of these verses are probably would quote all the time. And this is the beginning of a series of verses describing the dead end, if you will, of worshipping the demigods. Then you can worship the demigods, you may succeed to go to the heavenly planets, but you'll have to come back to this earth. Ultimately, it's a dead end. So we read that. So he's describing now, someone has faith, you see? You have to have faith to worship the demigods. So Krishna, if you want to worship the demigod, Krishna will give you the faith. Yo yo yam yam tanam bhakta shraddhaya chitam ichchati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Purport. God has given independence to everyone. Therefore, if a person desires to have material enjoyment and wants very sincerely to have such facilities from the material demigods, the Supreme Lord, as the super soul in everyone's heart, understands and gives facilities to such persons. As the Supreme Father of all living entities, He does not interfere with their independence, but gives all facilities so that they can fulfill their material desires. Some may ask why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying this material world, and so lets them fall into the trap of the illusory energy. The answer is that if the Supreme Lord, as the Super Soul, does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. Therefore, He gives everyone full independence, whatever one likes. But His ultimate instruction we find in the Bhagavad-gītā. One should give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto Him. That will make man happy. Both the living entity and the demigods are subordinate to the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the living entity cannot worship the demigod by his own desire, nor can the demigod bestow any benediction without the supreme will. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, persons who are distressed in the material world go to the demigods, as they are advised in the Vedic literature. A person wanting some particular thing may worship such and such a demigod. For example, a diseased person is recommended to worship the sun god. A person wanting education may worship the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And a person wanting a beautiful wife may worship the goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. In this way, there are recommendations in the Shastras, of Vedic scriptures, for different modes of worship of different demigods. And because a particular living entity wants to enjoy a particular material facility, the Lord inspires him with a strong desire to achieve that benediction from that particular demigod. And so he successfully receives the benediction. The particular mode of the devotional attitude of the living entity toward a particular type of demigod is also arranged by the Supreme Lord. The demigods cannot infuse the living entities with such an affinity, but because He, the Lord, is the Supreme Lord, or the Super Soul who is present in the hearts of all living entities, Krishna gives impetus to man to worship certain demigods. The demigods are actually different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they have no independence. In the Vedic literature, it is stated, quote, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Super Soul, is also present within the heart of the demigod. Therefore, he arranges through the demigod to fulfill the desire of the living entity. But both the demigod and the living entity are dependent on the Supreme Will. They are not independent. So everything, this is all describing desire and faith. Faith is an essential part of this whole thing. Yo-yo yam yam tonu bhakta shraddhayarchita mishtati. I am in everyone's heart. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Now I may make a little comment on here that may be a little controversial, but I think it's correct. And it's not just demigods that one can believe in. It's political figures, it's crystals, it can be anything, you know. And if you really, want to, believe in that, and you're among a group of people who believe in it and worship it, then you'll catch it. Whoever you associate with, you take on those qualities. Sangat sanjayate kama. That's why association is everything. That even a moment's association with a pure devotee is more valuable than going to heaven, getting liberation, or anything else you can think of. Because by that association, you can get the seed of faith. It begins in faith, in bhakti. And you'll come to practice of bhakti, and soon you realize that this is really the path to the greatest welfare. But unfortunately, of course, Prabhupada made the great effort, and it is all over the world, and we have the centers, and we have the books. But still, the material energy is very strong, and billions of people don't have any faith and may not even know about us. And so but they have faith. You have to have faith. They'll have faith in some political leader, they'll have faith in some weird philosophy, some conspiracy theory. You can pick it up from your internet. You see, there's a million different disinformations going on out there, and some people are buying them, and they're going into them, and it's a really dangerous situation, because by that ignorance, great suffering comes from the motive. When the mode of ignorance becomes predominant, then society goes to hell. So that's what we're fighting. That's why when we go the book distributors and preaching and all different kinds, we're trying to push back the heavy influence of the mode of ignorance in this age of Kali with real knowledge for people's benefit. So that's Krishna is speaking here. So he's saying if someone desires, you see, I'm in everyone's heart. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady. So Krishna's responding to the desire, and he's giving the faith, and he's going down this path. But then you'll see that eventually it ends in frustration. And after so many times like that, we don't have to go down the path. We can read this, say, no, that's not the way we want to go. It may seem like a good idea going to Indraloka, but forget it. I'd rather go to Goloka. Text 22. Satya Shraddhaya, see, with that faith, so he's made the faith strong. Satya Shraddhaya yuktas tasya radhanamihate labhate chatata kaman mayaiva vahitanitan. Endowed with such faith that Krishna has given him, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So Krishna is empowering the demigods to give whatever you're praying to him for. So why go to the clerk? Why not go to the boss? You see? Go straight to Krishna. Then you'll get the really valuable thing. Purport. The demigods cannot award benedictions to their devotees without the permission of the Supreme Lord. The living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. So the worship of demigods and achievement of desired results are due not to the demigods, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by arrangement. The less intelligent living entity does not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefit, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity, and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one who worships the Supreme Lord and at the same time desires material enjoyment is contradictory in his desires. Devotional service to the Supreme Lord and the worship of a demigod cannot be on the same platform, because worship of a demigod is material and devotional service to the Supreme Lord is completely spiritual. For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord is therefore not awarded the material benefits desired by less intelligent living entities, who therefore prefer to worship demigods of the material world rather than engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna says to Yudhishthira in the 10th canto, Yasyaham anagunnami harishe taddanang shanai. To those who I really give my mercy, I take away all their material benefits. Not only doesn't he award more material, but he takes away whatever they have. And then bereft of anything, their wives and relatives kick him out of the house. What good are you? You know, you're not making any money. And you have no choice but to surrender to. In other words, Krishna makes an arrangement where the only thing that makes any sense is surrendering to him. You see? He helps us that way. Sometimes you find in the devotees' lives, you know, I remember when I was working in Back to Godhead, every month I think we would have a feature, how I came to Krishna consciousness. It's always fascinating, you know, how people come to Krishna. And oftentimes it's a situation where you try to do this, you try to do this, you fail to do this, you fail to that. Then you met a devotee, and they invited you to a feast, and he or she seemed very friendly, and you know, it was free, and they're just coming until you're attracted to come and get some prasadam or whatever. But in the course of doing that, you get the book, you know, and you get the kirtan, and before you know it, you're curious, and you come back, and you really want to get knowledge, and you graduate under these 4 different type of people who come. So, but the initial impetus was because your plans had, you know, you were depressed, and you felt defeated in life. It just happens that way often. Somehow or other, Krishna arranges for us to come. So Krishna then finishes his little lesson on the dead end of deity worship is what this is, these 4 or 5 verses. This verse is famous, often quoted, Antavatu palam tesham tadbhaval jalpamedasam devan deviyajo yanti modbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Text 23. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. This alpamadasam means small amount of intelligence, brain substance, Prabhupada said. That's in this, to worship anyone else but Krishna. All right, we'll finish with this purport. Some commentators on the Bhagavad-gītā say that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord. But here it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to the different planetary systems where various demigods are situated. just as a worshipper of the sun achieves the sun, or a worshipper of the demigod of the moon achieves the moon. Similarly, if anyone wants to worship a demigod like Indra, he can attain that particular god's planet. It is not that everyone, regardless of whatever demigod he is worshipped, will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is denied here. For it is clearly stated that the worshippers of the demigods go to different planets in the material world, but the devotee of the Supreme Lord goes directly to the Supreme Planet of the Personality of Godhead. Here the point may be raised that if the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, then the same end should be achieved by worshipping them. However, worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent because they don't know to what part of the body food must be supplied. Some of them are so foolish that they claim that there are many parts and many ways to supply food. This isn't very sanguine or intelligent. Can anyone supply food to the body through ears or eyes? They do not know that these demigods are different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. And in their ignorance, these are the demigod worshippers, they believe that each and every demigod is a separate god and a competitor of the Supreme Lord. Not only are the demigods parts of the Supreme Lord, but ordinary living entities are also. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Brahmins are the head of the Supreme Lord, the Kshatriyas are his arms, the Vaishyas are his waist, and the Shudras are his legs. And all serve different functions. Regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, his knowledge is perfect. But if he does not understand this, he achieves different planets where the demigods reside. This is not the same destination the devotee reaches. The results achieved by the demigods' benedictions are perishable, because within this material world, the planets, the demigods, and their worshippers are all perishable. Therefore, it is clearly stated in this verse that all results achieved by worshipping demigods are perishable, and therefore such worship is performed by the less intelligent living entity. Because the pure devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness in devotional service of the Supreme Lord achieves eternal blissful existence that is full of knowledge, his achievements and those of the common worshipper of the demigods are different. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. His favor is unlimited. His mercy is unlimited. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Lord upon his pure devotees is unlimited. So this is Krishna's little disquisition on demigod worship in the 7th chapter. He also has one in the 9th chapter. He says, even if you go to you achieve Indraloka, te tam bhuktva svarga lokam vishalam, and your enjoyment is very broad and you live a long time, still, chine punye martya lokam vishanti. When your pious credits are used up, you see, because it's a material thing, even if it's in heaven, then you have to fall down again to this earthly planet. And therefore, evam trihidhamma manupapanna. Trihidhamma means the 3 parts, sections of the Vedas that deal with karma kanda. You could go and come. Gadagatam kama kama labante. You're going up and then you're coming back down. You haven't achieved anything really, So that's the difference. So all this chapter is so important. There's so many very quotable verses here, and we're going to continue with our exploration tomorrow into the next section, the next 24. Uh-oh, what did I do with that red thing? I don't see it. Oh, here it is, right here. So before we adjourn, time for a little poem. Any requests? All right, so let me give one of my favorites. Okay. All right, I think, no, we don't have time for that one. Well, we can have the little fall and redemption of the soul, because we're all on that parabola. For where Krishna lives, felicity abounds with pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoid of piety, he suffers in anxiety till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. Now you didn't think that the class is at 8:15, right? You understand. Okay. Because we haven't seen much of you, I thought maybe you... So now we have to adjourn. Thank you for listening.
That was a great one.
Yeah, that's a favorite. Okay.